This is the lecture for chapter 18, which deals with homosexuals' sex. And that is a very controversial type of issue that exists throughout the United States and throughout the world. So as you can see with our chapter 16 dealing with abortion, these are controversial subjects that involve ethics and morals, and also your use of some of the tools that we have already developed thus far. Now, homosexual rights, gay marriage, gays in the military, these issues evoke strong feelings. Though some societies have been quite tolerant, perhaps favorable toward homosexual relations. The ancient Greeks, for example, are some societies, in the Romans that tolerated homosexual activity. But we can say that there's no doubt that homosexuals have suffered severe persecution. Homosexuals face imprisonment and even capital punishment in many cultures, and social ostracism, abuse, and violent assaults are far from uncommon. The United States military policy, under which homosexuals are allowed to serve in the military so long as they keep their sexual activities and identities hidden, was perhaps well intentioned, but ultimately it satisfies no one. The military basically said, quote, "You can join us so long as you constantly pretend to be someone else," unquote. It's not a very welcoming invitation. The conservative icon and declared Air Force pilot Senator Barry Goldwater, ironically, was a strong advocate for admission of homosexuals into the armed forces, and he stated his views with characteristic bluntness. He said, quote, "Everyone knows that gays have served honorably in the military since at least the time of Julius Caesar. They'll still be serving long after you're all dead and buried. That should not surprise anyone. You don't need to be straight to fight and die for your country. You just need to shoot straight." And this is a quote from the Washington Post, June 10, 1993. So that was about 20 years ago. In order to examine the question fairly, it's necessary to set aside some of the hot button controversies and concentrate on the specific issue. Is homosexuality immoral? Many other issues are too easily conflated with that one. First, this is not a question of whether child sex abuse is immoral. Sexual abuse is wrong whether the abuser is heterosexual or homosexual. After all, most cases of child sexual abuse are committed by heterosexuals, which does not imply that heterosexuality itself is morally wrong. Second, this is not a question of sexual promiscuity. Both the heterosexual and homosexual relationships can be monogamous, and both homosexuals and heterosexuals are sometimes promiscuous, as anyone who lives in a college community is well aware. Third, this is not a question of whether some religion approves or condemns homosexuality. That some religious traditions have condemned homosexuality is clear, though there is considerable dispute about whether Judeo-Christian doctrine should be interpreted as condemning homosexuality. And fourth, this is not a debate about the legal status of homosexual acts. One might believe that homosexual acts are wrong, but that in a free society, people's private lives should not be under the control of the law. Just as one might believe that heterosexual oral sex is wrong, or that drinking alcohol is wrong, but believe that they should not be legally prohibited. Or one might believe that the moral status of homosexuality is irrelevant to the question of legality, since the government should not legislate morality. And we would say again, Senator Barry Goldwater stated, the conservative movement to which I subscribe has as one of its basic tenets the belief that government should stay out of people's private lives. Government governs best when it governs least, and stays out of the impossible task of legislating morality. But legislating someone's vision of morality is exactly what we do by perpetrating discrimination against gays. And so that's another quote from Barry Goldwater, who was one of our most conservative senators that ever served, and a general in the armed forces as well. The question at issue here is whether homosexual acts between consenting adults are morally wrong, and in that controversy, one of the contested issues is the question of what is natural. That question leads to two more. First, how do we define natural? And second, what reasons are there for considering what is natural as good and anything unnatural bad? The question of what is natural is of central importance to the natural law tradition of ethics, a tradition that has its roots in some remarks by Aristotle, and that became a central part of the Roman Catholic ethical tradition through the work of Thomas Aquinas in the 15th century. Though a popular view for many centuries, natural law ethics faces several challenges, as among Catholic theologians, natural law ethics was largely abandoned. Recently, several writers, including John Finnis, have attempted to revive the natural law position, applying it to ethics as well as legal issues. There is now considerable dispute about exactly what counts as natural law, but the natural law tradition generally involves several basic ideas. Human acts and the laws and principles governing them are morally good when they promote the development of our true human nature. Our human nature and its proper development is assigned by God, and the key element of our human nature is rationality. Now, if we look at homosexual sex, the debate over gay rights and homosexual behavior is ongoing, as has previously been stated. So, to examine the question, then what we must answer is homosexuality immoral? There are other issues that are commonly and wrongfully attached or conflated in the issue of homosexual sex, and that is child abuse, sexual promiscuity, religious beliefs about homosexuality, and legal status of homosexuals. And those are basically sort of side issues, and as we would say before, kind of red herrings associated with homosexuality. So John Finnis was a professor who was against homosexuality. He was a leader of the new natural lawyers who advocate natural laws. And he espoused that homosexual sex is wrong. And over the last 30 years, Europe created a standard of legal regulation of sexual conduct. The concern of the standard position is not with the inclination, but how those sexual inclinations express or manifest themselves in deliberate promotion of homosexual activity. Not the same as making homosexual acts a crime. And it draws a distinction between supervising the truly private conduct of adults and supervising the public realm of environment. Three fundamental theses to support the rejection of homosexual conduct: that the commitment of a man and a woman to each other is the sexual union of marriage is intrinsically good and reasonable. That commitment is incompatible with sexual sex outside the marriage. Homosexual acts are radically and peculiarly non-marital. Therefore, they are intrinsically unreasonable and unnatural. Homosexual acts have a special similarity to solitary masturbation, which is manifestly unworthy of humans and immoral. It goes on to say that marital sex is inherently reproductive. The union of the reproductive organs of men and women unites them biologically. That union can actualize and allow them to experience their real common good, their marriage, with the common good of friendship and parenthood. And that sex acts are not unitive in their significance unless they are marital. They are not marital unless they have not only the generosity of acts of friendship, but also reproduction. Now, the arguments for homosexuality would be under John Corvino, also a philosophy or a professor of philosophy. And he specializes in the ethical theory and applied ethics, commonly lecturing on the topics of homosexuality. It's written Same Sex, Debating the Ethics, Science, and Culture of Homosexuality. And homosexual relations are morally legitimate. So the responses to anti-homosexual arguments, the response that it's unnatural. And the question is, what does unnatural mean? And as you know from our course, that we constantly attempt to define the meaning of various words that we use and various ideas. So many things that we value are not natural. Deviation from the norm. Being a minority person does not make an act immoral. Not found in that's not found in the United Kingdom. Many studies have uncovered homosexuality in animals, even without the evidence. Humans do many moral things that animals do not. And it does not proceed from innate desire. If people are born gay, then it is innate. Both homosexual and heterosexual people have some degree of lifestyle choice in their sexual relationships. And the responses to anti-homosexual arguments, it is unnatural, continue. Primary purpose of an organ. Many of our organs have multiple purposes. Heterosexual people use their organs for sex that is not motivated by procreation. In other words, that a person or in a heterosexual relationship, it is not always a situation that sex is for having children. It may be for other reasons. That is disgusting or offensive. Many morally neutral activities could disgust us. That is not reflection on their morality. The responses to homosexual arguments, that it's harmful. Homosexual couples generally report being happy and fulfilled with their life and partners. There's no harmful effect on other society members. Does it violate biblical teachings? The Bible is full of passages that practitioners do not consider binding. People learn to interpret the Bible in historical context, and passages on homosexuality are no different. Now that concludes our lecture on homosexual sex. And please review the slides if you would like again, and read the chapter 18 if you have not already done so. And then be sure that you take the test that's going to be given, and that will cover this area as well. Okay, thank you.